How's it going, everybody? Rob here, back with another video. Well, video, audio, podcast. Um, and we got quite the doozy. This is episode 27, and, well, we are looking at Psycho 2. This is the sequel to Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock. It's, or at least it was released in 1983, directed by Richard Franklin, written by Tom Holland, Robert Bach, starring Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Meg Tilly, and many, many others. Now, I'm going to say this, because initially, I was surprised. I think it's probably the best way to kind of express how I felt about this, because I didn't even realize there was a sequel to the original Psycho. Not and as far as I can see, no association with Hitchcock, but overall it was interesting. The story follows, I want to say, years later. In fact, just to read the brief description on IMDb. After 22 years of psychiatric care, Norman Bates attempts to return to a life of solitude, but the specters of his crimes and his mother continue to haunt him. So, years after the murders, he is released from jail, possibly cured from his mental instability, and goes back to the Bates Hotel, or Bates Motel, to basically try to relive his life. He finds a job on the side, and just periodically, while helping this young woman out, starts getting messages, possibly from his dead mother. And I want to go into a spoiler section in a little bit, and fully go into this movie, but overall, this was actually entertaining. And I will say that it kind of kept me on edge a little bit. And that's more because I did not expect the twist. I did not expect the reveal. And overall, you kind of question with this film of whether or not it was Norman that was either doing the murders, or if he was actually innocent the entire time. Unfortunately, towards the end, there's a lot of tragedy. Like, things do, I'll admit, like, things do not go well towards the end. And it just, I will say, it's kind of sad. It really is. But honestly, great movie. Characters were a lot of fun to watch. The story itself, again, going into the suspense of it, the murder mystery, you don't really know who is the killer. And it does play with the idea that it could have been Norman, once again. But overall, there are other factors that kind of take place while this movie is going on. Like, I don't want to say too much, but they're like right off the bat, like towards the beginning, where there's this court case of him being released or not being released. The sister of one of the victims, who's played by Vera Miles. She, who was, by the way, played Lila. She, just right off the bat, again, not going too far into the movie, she is the one petitioning to keep Norman Bates in jail because she doesn't want him to come back and possibly kill again. And at this point is very vengeful for what happened to her sister. So, overall, great movie. And honestly, you know, I want to say, I want to give this, and I know I keep using, or like, really, really overusing this, but for a movie of its time, it actually did pretty good. I honestly want to give this a watch it now, or buy it now. Um, it's a movie that, honestly, would be great for you guys' collection. Um, so, anyway, I want to go into the spoiler section now, because there's a lot to talk about, and I need to talk about it. Okay, so, like I said before, towards the very beginning, we have a court case with Norman Bates being released. Lila doesn't want him to be released. She has been petitioning to keep him in jail for the crimes of the people, basically for punishment for the people that he killed, including her sister. He does inevitably get released because, to an extent, a doctor by the name of Dr. Raymond ends up curing him, as far as we know. And he goes home, back to the Bates Hotel. When he gets back, it's been run by a guy named Toomey, who has made it into a sex hotel. I'm not even kidding. Like, you find that out, like, pretty soon. Like, pretty quickly. And he's a little bit disgusted by this. So he ends up firing this dude who, in a sense, knows about his background and at the same time tries to goad him. He also, throughout the movie, is helping this girl, Mary, who is, I want to point out, like, just to get this out of the way, because you find out at one point in the movie, Mary is Lila's daughter. And in a sense, is spending time with Norman to try to get him to slip back into his insanity. But anyways, he ends up getting a job. Norman gets a job at a cafe, or a diner. Sorry, that'd be the better term, diner. And at first it's working all right for him, but eventually it starts kind of progressing where it's like he starts getting notes from his quote-unquote dead mother, as well as phone calls of somebody claiming to be his mother. It's really weird. But unfortunately, with stuff like that, it does inevitably like start having him slip back to some of his old habits. And we find out too that all of this is from, or at least caused by, Mary and Lila. Even though throughout the movie, Lila starts having a change of heart, that he might actually be cured, and at this point, there's really no reason for them to torment him anymore, and basically let the dead rest, like not take revenge on Norman anymore. So now, as I mentioned before, eventually murders start happening. One of the first is Toomey, after causing problems at the diner and trying to goad Norman to attack him. He gets killed. A random teenager that snuck into the Bates house ends up getting killed, and eventually culminates to Lila eventually getting killed, and then Mary killing Norman's doctor, Dr. Raymond, and then Mary, who ends up discovering the body of her mother, and Lila and Norman find the body. She assumes that Norman killed her mother. And there's actually a scene before this where, like, again, this is a culminating to, like, eventually them getting to this point where, you know, Norman's starting going crazy again. And to, in a sense, like, to stop Norman from doing what she thinks he's doing, she accidentally cuts him several times, or stabbing him, and eventually it gets to the point where the police show up after, like, investigating and finding, vehicles with dead bodies and whatnot in the swamp, kind of like what happened with the original murders. They find Mary in the mother costume and shoot her, and blame all the murders on Lila and Mary. Now, there is a point in the movie where it turns out that there's been a couple occasions with some of the calls of, like, somebody claiming to be Norman's mother, that those cases weren't actually Lila and Mary. Turns out that there was also a third party that was doing this. And we find out towards the very end that it was a character that helped him get the job at the diner, a lady by the name of Miss Spool, who was Norman's biological mother, but was never in his life due to certain tendencies, which I think it's implied that she might have killed somebody or something. Like, she was violent as well, or mentally unwell, which explains a lot since she was the one that was killing everyone. But overall, towards the end, she confesses to doing everything, and Norman, unfortunately, between the notes, the phone calls, the situation with Mary and Lila, everything just, falls apart for Norman. And unfortunately, he reverts back to his mother persona. And the movie ends literally with him killing Mrs. Spool, carrying her body up to the upstairs, and, in a sense, speaking in the mother persona. Or with the mother persona. So, unfortunately, despite him trying to get away or move past what he's done and how he felt, he reverted back to those tendencies and those behaviors. So, anyway, as I mentioned before, this is by now. Watch it. This was a lot of fun. And like I said before, like, towards the very, like, for this movie, I did not expect the twist. Like, for all I knew, it was Norman again. Or it was, at this point, Lila or Mary, who were, let's face it, that were killing people. I will say, like, it was great that, like, for a character like Miss Spool, you only see her a couple times, and you don't suspect her at all in terms of who she is, why she's important, and so on. So, all in all, it was a fun experience. I absolutely enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys too. With that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this video/audio podcast here. Thank you all for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, it's all in the description down below. As well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob of Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. And I'll see you guys next video.